Hello, welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for Thursday Night Football. It is December 21st, and we're going over the Rams versus the Saints. Should be a fun game. We're going to dive straight into it, but before we do, I want to bring up a nice little deal we got here. So, we got Sleeper, a $500 match. If you are a new customer to LineStar, deposit at least $10. I would recommend depositing as much as you possibly can so you get this first time deposit bonus of up to $500. It is a dollar for dollar match. And really, this is one of the best edges we currently have in sports betting. They're getting you free money to bet that you can then use LineStar up to 1 month free to help you try and make some money. Now, let's get into the slate. We do have the single game, Saints at Rams, 45-point total. So the totals came down a little bit over the last couple days. And 3.5-point favorite for the Rams. I think this is a little bit of an interesting slate in the fact that Saints defense has been very good, while their offense has kind of been like meh, but they somehow still score some points. They are a very fast-paced team. Meanwhile, that Rams offense has been very, very good as of late. So let's dive into the game a little bit. As always, we will do a little bit of position by position and go through it. Let me set this up a little bit here. And another thing I wanted to talk about that I almost forgot about was last night. I had a pretty good night. I was able to get second and third in the FanDuel contest. Cash for $30K. Just wanted to show everybody that, we are doing these NBA shows similar to this one every single day. And things are going right. LineStar is leading us the right way, and we are making some money here. So let's get back to football now. All right. So we got football here. Our highest owned quarterback is Matthew Stafford. Now, no real surprise here. Derek Carr simply hasn't been very good lately, and Stafford has been. So I don't mind some Stafford. I don't mind some Derek Carr. My one issue with Derek Carr is the use of Taysom Hill. He's used so much in the red zone that it really brings down the ceiling of Derek Carr. Now, there are absolutely games that Derek Carr gets all the work, and that's probably why his ownership is showing a little smaller right now, but I'd much do prefer Stafford over Carr. Now on to FanDuel. Ownership is a very similar situation. Derek Carr it's flipped. It is Derek Carr getting all the ownership and Stafford getting less. Now, I straight up think this is absolutely wrong. I think Stafford is the one you should be focusing on, not Carr. So it is a nice little leverage situation for us to be able to go Stafford. Now, I do not think his ownership is going to be 8%. It'll be much more than that, but Derek Carr will likely be the higher owned quarterback, at least on FanDuel. Now, matchup-wise, Carr does have the better matchup. Quarterbacks have done better versus the Rams than they have done versus the Saints. If you look, quarterbacks have had a rough go versus the Saints a little bit lately, but you also notice the quarterbacks that they have faced this year aren't that great. So that definitely could lead to part of why it shows them as such a good matchup or tough matchup. Now, Stafford is much better than guys like DeVito, Young, Ritter, etc. Goff is a solid quarterback, but only put up 16. Dobbs got to him. Badgett got to him. Minshew did all right. Lawrence did all right. So, decent quarterbacks are getting to him, and they're really taking advantage of bad quarterbacks. So while the matchup shows a little bit worse for Stafford, I don't necessarily agree. And I think he is in a better matchup than it shows. Now, over on running backs, no surprise here. Kamara and Kyren are the two high-owned running backs. Now, Kyren is more expensive, but I think he is the much better play. Our projection shows, 4.2 points more. So there's definitely a good reason to use Kyren here. It's also, if you notice on the consensus, it's almost a 4-point difference here. So all in all, Kyren is the better play, and ownership should show that. But right now, Kyren's coming a little bit lower owned, likely just due to the $400 price difference. But in my mind, that is not enough to warrant going to Kamara over Kyren. I think Kyren clearly is the better play here today. Now on to FanDuel. How does it look? It is like we thought it would. Kyren up top, Kamara right underneath. It is $1,000 difference here, so a bigger difference, but still more people are going to Kyren, which does make sense to me. I would way rather Kyren. And then you get to the other guys. You get to Jamal Williams, Royce Freeman. Look, both of them are slightly involved, but not getting much work unless it is garbage time or a vulture TD situation. They're probably not really going to be very useful on this slate. If you're playing a ton of lineups, maybe play a little bit, but not very much of your allocation should be there. And matchup tool-wise, Kyren has a little bit of a better matchup than Kamara. I would agree with that. Neither matchup is great, though, so take that into consideration. You could always just stack the passing game instead of going to running backs. We do know that, one, the Rams have an elite passing game, and Saints defense generally likes you pass on them, but tries to stop the run. And then Rams been good versus the run, so why fight it a little bit there. Now, if we get over to wide receivers, so ownership, we got Chris Olave, highest owned, 61%, Nakua at 60, and Kupp at 53. No surprise, those three are the highest owned guys. If we go down the list a little bit here, we had some interesting spots. Tutu Atwell has had some real big games this year. He isn't going to get much target-wise. 1 to 4 probably is about his max, but he does make some big plays and gets it, makes it happen on a limited amount of touches at 2,800. I think you got to at least consider him because there is that upside. And I do think that Tutu is going to be used a little bit more than Demarcus Robinson, with Tutu coming back. However, you cannot forget about what he has done recently. Maybe the Rams let him be wide receiver 3 still, just because he has done so well. However, I think Tutu has definitely earned it as well over the course of the season. So both of them are decent lower owned punts to take. And then on the other side of the ball, Rashid Shaheed is a very interesting player. Look, the thing with him is he is boom bust. If ownership is not there, I love taking chances on him because he can do one of these 3 receptions, 153, 4, and a touchdown type games. But his normal, 3 for 30 yards, something like that. 3 for 22, 3 for 24. So you have a real low floor, but the high is real high. These are the type of players I do like to play in GPPs and take my chances on him. So he definitely is in the bunch. A.T. Perry is going to get a few targets. Not going to probably do a ton, but he is there. He's an exciting young player. We still have to see what he can do. And then there's Kirkland and Bowden, which are just punt plays at this point. Now on to FanDuel. We got a similar ownership situation. So we got Nakua and Olave are the 2 highest owned, while Kupp is getting forgot about a little bit at only 9% owned. So the reason here is Kupp is 2K more than Olave, 2.5K more than Nakua, and people are just taking that salary savings. Now, from a game theory situation, I would be all over Kupp in this situation. If you're going to be able to get a high scoring player with a high ceiling at low ownership, regardless of salary, I think you kind of got to take it. So I think Kupp on FanDuel is fairly interesting here. Shaheed might be going a little over-owned on FanDuel, but absolutely willing to take some shots there. And then Atwell and Robinson are in play once again on FanDuel. Now, matchup-wise, for good old wideouts, we got A.T. Perry, Olave, and Rashid all have the best matchups. Rams D just is not as good as the Saints. Now, one thing I will say is, going back to the quarterback situation, Saints haven't played that many good quarterbacks and that talented of receivers. These guys can absolutely win on the Rams, so I would absolutely be intrigued by taking these guys, even though Matchup Tool isn't quite showing that they're in a great spot. Get over to tight end. Tight end is kind of a cluster in this slate. So there's a lot of tight ends that are absolutely worthy. We got Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill for the Saints. Both are used. Taysom Hill is always an interesting one, especially at low ownership. With how much he is used in the red zone, he can really bust open these showdown slates. So I'm interested in taking some shots on him. Then you have Jimmy Graham, who just keeps getting in the end zone. It seems like they're only using him in the red zone. He gets 2 targets a game and gets a touchdown. Has had a touchdown in 3 straight. Now, does that happen again today? I don't know. The Saints are getting healthier, so do make sure that he is even active. But they've been using him a lot in the red zone, and as a punt play, he is very interesting. 1,600 could get you a TD. I do like Taysom. I like Juwan. Foster Morneau, in my eyes, is probably the odd man out in this one, and the guy that I probably would not be using as much as the other. On the other side, it is kind of Tyler Higbee or bust. He is a solid tight end, has had some big games, does have some big time upside. It just is few and far between when you have the talent that the Rams do at the wide receiver spot. Now, he could always get in the end zone, so if you're playing Stafford and you're stacking that passing game, Higbee could be a way to get a little different and get a Stafford TD. On to FanDuel's side, surprisingly, Higbee is the high-owned tight end, but then we got Hill, Johnson, Morneau, Jimmy Graham, all coming in there, all of which are in play. The Saints tight end situation, while it is a tough one to figure out, there's a lot of merits in going there, so I don't mind going there whatsoever, especially at Taysom Hill, just because Taysom has such a high ceiling when it's a game where they're game scripting him in. So I'm definitely interested in some Taysom. And Higbee has a very good matchup on paper, 31st versus tight end for the Saints. So definitely intrigued by him. Waller went for 40 yards. Laporta, 140 and a touchdown. Hawkinson, 134 and a touchdown. 55 and 2 for Kmet. You know, some solid receiver or tight ends have really, really had good games versus the Saints. So that is absolutely interesting for Higbee and, you know, his possible outcome for tonight. Looking at defenses and kickers, look, we have a 45-point total. So you can consider that as kind of a medium outcome as far as what Vegas thinks. If we go under, defenses are absolutely in play. If we go over, it might not be the best situation for the defenses, but at least it is an outcome you can consider, and I think the defenses are both in play here. Don't mind having a little bit of them. With the Rams at only 17% owned, I'm a little bit more intrigued by them on DraftKings than I am the Saints. But I wouldn't count either of them out. And on FanDuel, they're fairly similarly owned. Don't mind them. Don't mind the kickers. All in all, tonight's matchup is going to be an interesting one. Figure out a way to get a little bit different. Figure out that game script you think is going to happen and tailor tailor your lineup around that. If you think it's going to be a defensive struggle, you could have a kicker at captain or a D at captain and then a couple stars. That'll do it for us tonight, guys. You all have a good one, and I will be back later today with the main slate for NFL. Have a good one. Bye.